Hello everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well, and today we're going to be talking about, those Oscar ratings, which, as this article from the New York Post says, the putrid Oscar ratings throw the telecast future in doubt, which, yeah, you know what? After everything they've done the last several years, most especially, they pretty much deserve. Before going into the ratings and what a former president had to say about those ratings, I wanted to first thank every person that was able to watch the third annual Wednesday Raven Awards. It is our Oscars boycott, where not only do we boycott the Oscars, but we also have our own awards show where we talk about the best and the worst in movies and pop culture. It was a lot of fun, and if you happen to missed it, the video is live on YouTube, the live version's on Odyssey as well. And again, thank you very much for everyone's support. And if you just want to know the nominees and the winners, if you go to my website and go to where it says Raven Awards and choose it for 2020, it'll give you the list of all of the nominees, explanations of certain categories, and the one who has won having been underlined and bolded. And so to go over just a couple of those, best movie of 2020, according to the people of Asgard, was Sonic the Hedgehog. So congratulations to Sonic. And the Kathleen Kennedy and Ryan Johnson Award for Excellence in Crap World Building, which is our equivalent of Worst Movie of the Year, went to Wonder Woman 1984. Very well deserving there, as it was a terrible movie, though I personally disagree with the Asgardian family, because Artemis Fowl, out of all of them, is by far the worst from an objective level. But it was also really cool because the Lifetime Achievement Award, people that we deemed to be overlooked in Hollywood, went to Kurt Russell, who we all know is a pretty awesome actor. Not only is he talented and in a bunch of awesome movies, but also he's very vocally a libertarian in Hollywood, which is kind of something that is not really supportive. You either have to be fully embracing of the ideology of Hollywood, or you're just not really welcome. So the fact that he's been able to make a career and still be outspoken was pretty cool. But anyway, if you check this out, you also have links to the YouTube version of the show and the Odyssey version of the show as well. But let's go ahead and get into this, because yes, indeed, while the Ravens were once again a success and was a lot of fun, the Oscars apparently were not. And this is one of those first years where I haven't even watched any clips from the Oscars. I've heard some things about people who won based on people who were in the chat during the Raven Awards, because there were some naughty people who were watching the Oscars during the Raven Awards, which kind of defeats the purpose. But obviously there are some people that still care to some degree, because you look at the Oscars and the history of the Oscars, and for the vast majority of them, I would say that they've been pretty good at, recognizing people and recognizing films that are worthy of getting that type of recognition. And it's really the last, I think, really gotten off to a huge, I think like the biggest movement away from what it used to be has really been the last 10 years or so. But I think some could probably date it back from the last 10 to 20 years. But I know that I started to really notice things going downhill around 2008, 2009, whichever Oscars between those 2 years. One of them, all of a sudden, I just started to notice the politicking was just getting worse and worse. And of course, it just kept getting worse. And then 2016, it reached, I think, its peak. And it has really not stopped going down ever since that point. And obviously, we can point to certain political events in the United States as being a reason as to why the politicking just got so bad. But anyway, let's read a little bit about what the New York Post has to say about these ratings. It says here, memo to TV execs, the Oscars are dead. Wow, that is quite a statement to make. It says, Sunday night's nail in the coffin Oscar cast on ABC plunged to an all-time low of 9.85 million viewers, down an almost incomprehensible 60% from the 24 million who watched last year's telecast, and that was the lowest ever. It was also the first time in the show's history that less than 10 million people tuned in, ratings territory once considered sniff pedestrian for the Academy Awards. So already starting off having the very worst ratings in the entire history. Remember how long the Oscars have been going on and how many years they have had this show, and it has been televised. They have never had numbers like this before. It's just kind of crazy and insane to think that we are now in 2021. We are still in the midst of pandemic, meaning that you have a lot of people who are at home and wanting to watch TV and escape, and even they recognize that you don't escape by watching the Oscars. No one wants to watch a bunch of rich people preach to them. I shared a clip on social media before the Ravens started, and it's still one of the greatest clips that deals with this point, and it's from Ricky Gervais from the last time I think he hosted the Golden Globe Awards, and in it he essentially called out Hollywood and said, when you come up here, just take your reward, take your award, say thank you, don't come up here and give your political crap, just shut that, basically just curse them out and saying just shut up and stop politicking because no one cares what you think. Again, he even called them out saying because you have no idea what you're talking about, right? And it's really true of most people in Hollywood. Most people in Hollywood live very pampered lives. They don't understand the everyday issues going on, and so when they decide to jump onto certain activist sides and start to push certain types of ideologies, it really shows how little they know and understand because they're taking it and giving it from a point of view that they really don't understand and have any grounds to speak on. So yeah, absolutely, totally agree with Ricky Gervais on that. But also, man, oh man, Michael Starr writing this article is becoming slowly my favorite entertainment writer with the way he's talking about how terrible this really was. It goes on. This from a supposed must-see event that in its heyday regularly averaged anywhere from 40 to 50 million viewers and soared to an all-time high of nearly 60 million in 1998. Imagine that. Those days are long gone now. It's easy to excuse Sunday night's dreadful showing by throwing in the pandemic factor, viewer fatigue, a hostless format, and the past year's dearth of breakout movies. But the Oscars have been shedding viewers since 2014. The last time it scored more than 40 million sets of eyeballs, as have been most of the roughly 48 other televised award shows, notably the Grammys, and therein lies the rub. It's the digital age, with many viewers viewing platforms available for watching at your leisure, particularly this past year when movies were streamed at home. There are too many award shows on television, and people just don't care anymore, particularly regarding the Oscars, an annual glacial-paced parade of self-congratulatory pats on the back, lame monologues with rare exception, and politics. Try as it might, it can't seem to get out of its own way, which doesn't bode well for its future as primetime television broadcast. And I think that is an excellent take on this, right? The fact that this got the worst ratings in history. And of course, what do you start to hear from a lot of people who are typically on the left, but people who are in the mainstream Hollywood media? It's because of the pandemic. It's because no one got to see movies this year. It's because the movies weren't that good. And then I look over to the Raven Awards. I look even to a lot of the nominations that they had for the Oscars. There were some pretty great films that came out this year. The issue is that the Oscars have become so self-centered that, one, they don't nominate and don't give focus to really great, fun movies. And two, since they have themselves admitted that they don't understand the problem by the fact that instead of, trying to broaden it out to include more films that have a more popular outreach, really good films that for some reason they stick their nose up at, like films like The Gentleman, for instance, which is arguably the best film of 2020, didn't even get even a small bit of recognition, right? Didn't even get a small bit of what it deserved to get as recognition as one of the year's best films. Instead, what did they do? Oh, that's right. They said, "Oh, we understand the issue. The issue is that we're not diverse enough. The issue is that the people on Twitter every year for the past several years have been really mean and have put the hashtag Oscars so white, and that's why people aren't watching." If you honestly think that that is the reason why people aren't watching, it just goes to show how clueless you actually are. If you honestly think that the people that you are now trying to push for, the people that you are now trying to reach out to, are the ones who would have any interest in watching a bunch of rich people pat themselves on the back in the first place, you truly are clueless. So not only are they driving away fans of the show, not only are they driving away people that typically would watch it, they're not gaining anyone new because the people they're trying to get aren't interested in it in the first place. And so once again, man, Oscars rating plummet. Now, of course, next year it'll probably go up a little bit, and they'll claim that it's because of their more diverse crew, etc. But we all know it's because this is going to be the lowest on record, and so it's just naturally going to go up. And Lord knows they'll probably try and do as many tricks as they can to try and play with the numbers. Maybe they'll try and choose a certain actor, or they'll try and bring a celebrity on to try and get those eyeballs. Don't be surprised if next year there is a host, and the host is like one of the biggest. Like, imagine, I wouldn't be surprised. Let's say next year they get The Rock, right? They say The Rock is going to be the host. They know that by that very logic alone, you're going to get higher than the 9 million people that watched this year, which in the end doesn't really mean that people are actually wanting to watch the show, but would rather be interested in The Rock. You want to know a way to get me to actually be interested in potentially watching the Oscars in the future? Say Ricky Gervais is going to be on and we're not going to censor him. Dear Lord, that would be the most amazing thing ever. That would be one of the few times where I would say, hey, you know what? Let's actually check in with the Oscars during the Raven Awards, because I want to hear what Ricky Gervais has to say, because he is so great at roasting the rich Hollywood elite. Someone else who is always very well known for being able to really go after Hollywood and the media and everything like that is Donald Trump. Now, of course, I would not call him anti-establishment, because obviously he himself, is being a very rich guy before even being a president, is obviously someone who is a part of that elite class, but at the very least, he says things that a lot of people can connect with. This from Deadline. Donald Trump seizes on low Oscar ratings to bash the telecast, saying, quote, "Don't be so politically correct and boring." And you know what? There is a lot of truth to that statement, despite what anyone might think about the guy himself. This is his full quote. It says, "What used to be called the Academy Awards and now is called the Oscars, a far less important and elegant name." Again, sometimes you just gotta laugh at the things that he harps on. Had the lowest television ratings in recorded history, even much lower than last year, which set another record low. If they keep with the current ridiculous formula, it will only get worse if that's possible. And again, that's the point, especially that I do disagree, because they know how to get people to watch, because they can get those fake viewers to watch who are not watching because they actually want to see the Oscars themselves, but because they want to see certain people. It's just like what they do with the Super Bowl, right? Typically, the Super Bowl halftime show guest is not someone that the football fans there actually want to see or care about. It's someone that they know they're going to be able to get people that typically don't watch football to, at the very least, turn it on during the halftime show, and therefore be able to kind of boost their ratings and get into more households. I mean, that's kind of how it always has gone. So I actually do think that next year, even if they go even more woke, they could still potentially get higher ratings, but it would be because of a cheap trick like being able to bring in a major celebrity or something like that. It goes on to say, go back 15 years, look at the formula that they use, change the name back to the Academy Awards. Again, he harps on that point. And don't be so politically correct and boring, and do it right. Also, bring back a great host. These television people spend all their time thinking about how to promote the Democrat Party, which is destroying our country, and cancel conservatives and Republicans. That formula certainly hasn't worked very well for the Academy. And here's the thing. He's speaking complete truth there. Do you know of any people currently working in mainstream Hollywood that are out and unashamed and unabashed Republicans or conservatives or libertarians? I mean, again, we can talk about Kurt Russell, and we can talk about, those rare exceptions that exist, Jon Voight, where they have more conservative values. But in the end, one could see that they are the exception and not the rule. And what we have seen instead is that people, especially up-and-coming people who don't have as much clout, because we're dealing there with people who have been in the industry so long that they have so much clout, it's a lot harder really to be able to justify getting rid of them. But let's look at the case like with Gina Carano. Gina Carano was a rising star because of The Mandalorian, right? She had a huge fan base. And what did they do? They canceled her, not because of what they claim that she made some offensive comments, because she didn't, but rather because she was showing herself to be anti-establishment. She was showing herself to be pro-freedom, and because that seemed to be somewhat close to a more conservative Republican ideology, they decided that they wanted to give her the boot and cancel them. Again, we've seen cancel culture play out, especially in Hollywood, and she, of course, is a great example of that actually happening. So I think that Donald Trump has a great point here. But look how this shill article from the deadline tries to make up with it. First, it goes after Trump for being critical of Parasite. Obviously, again, a lot of people were critical of Parasite, not because of the fact it's from South Korea, but because of the fact that not a lot of people saw it. And once again, that's one of the issues with the Oscars, is that it doesn't even nominate films that a lot of people have seen that are also really good films, right? It's something that I mentioned earlier. Films like The Gentleman would be a good example of that. Here's where it goes on to say, though. It says, and then also it defends saying, the term Oscars is a way to describe the ceremony. It actually does still technically call it. So it's basically trying to fact check him. And it's like, I mean, come on. It's just, they have to defend Hollywood at every single turn. But here's where it gets worse. It says, the ceremony drew an audience of less than 10 million, a record low, according to early Nielsen numbers. So already trying to say it could actually be better than they think. Talk hosts and commentators on the right, notice the framing here, seized on the low viewership to claim it was due to political statements and speeches made during the telecast, something that even Regina King acknowledged at the outset could be a turnoff. And guess what? It is. It's the same reason why basketball ratings are down, football ratings are down. It's because a lot of them decided to try and embrace identity politics, and people don't want to be preached to. People watch the Oscars, people watch the NBA, people watch all these various things to escape from the modern world because they want to be entertained. Are you not entertained? No, we're not entertained anymore by your nonsense. It goes on. But there's also a strong case, again, deadline, showing your framing. It's funny how you're like, oh, they're on the right. So Deadline, do you think that you're in the middle? Do you think that you're fair? You don't think you're on the left with this defense? It goes on. But there's also a strong case to be made that viewership numbers reflect the popularity of the nominees. With moviegoing curbed due to COVID-19 pandemic, many had yet to see or even hear of many of the contenders, even when they were available on streaming platforms. The political statements that were made during the Oscars did not focus on Trump, but on topics like gun violence and policing. So it's not only trying to say that the political statements have very little impact on the ratings itself going down, but it also tries to say it's not like they were going after Trump for any reason. It was things like gun violence and policing, things that, we have a specific view on, and we're going to try and convert you to, and we're going to try and capitulate to you to try and make you realize that if you're on the wrong side of these issues, that you must be evil. Again, Deadline, showing the shilling to an extreme degree. Who wrote this one? Usually I have my favorites. Ted Johnson. I actually don't know much about Ted Johnson. He doesn't really do a lot of the box office coverage. But anyway, interesting nonetheless to see, obviously, the putrid Oscar ratings. Again, I think that this, even though obviously some would argue that New York Post is more center-right or right, this is, I think, a much more accurate take of what's going on, right? It's giving the facts. It's obviously giving opinion in here as well. But it's also pointing out the fact that we can indeed go back to a certain year to talk about when we started to see massive drop-offs. And we can also, therefore, coincide that with a lot of the politics that was being added in, not just at the Oscars themselves, but in the various movies that Hollywood put out, and especially in the movies that Hollywood was propping up through the Oscars campaign as well. So all I can say is, you know what? Good. I'm glad the Oscars are doing poorly, because at the end of the day, if the Oscars had to go away in order for something better to come back, I'm fine with that. I'm fine losing the huge history that we have with the Oscars, because at this point, if they don't have something like this happen where the ratings go so low, or they don't have something catastrophic happen, which would be to have the show somehow get pulled, which I mean they're not going to, because even with 9 million, all of these rich people still get paid regardless. I think that they're never actually going to change. They're going to continue to try and push politics. They've already built it into their rules. Some of the rules haven't even gone into effect yet, and yet they will double down on those and try and argue about how we've had the most diverse Oscars of all time. And all I can say is that you really understand and know just how politically motivated they are when, instead of having Best Picture be the last award given, which is not just traditional but also makes the most logical sense, instead they had it be Best Actor. And it's interesting because who was nominated for Best Actor? Chadwick Boseman. Again, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. But you could tell that the main theme, especially with Regina King opening the show, the main theme of the show was trying to go after police officers, was trying to talk about and perpetuate the myths that have been perpetuated by these groups. And what they decide to do is, oh, hey, guess what? We're going to give an Oscar to Chadwick Boseman, who happens to be a black man, and it's going to end the show, and it's going to be a great way for us to really show just how woke we are and just to show how important racial diversity is, etc. But that didn't happen because in the end, guess who won Best Actor? That's right, Anthony Hopkins, an old white man. Which, by the way, is in a movie called The Father, which I've heard great things about and I want to see. But again, it's just interesting, and it's funny to see how a lot of people who are on the ideological left literally flipped out. I think it was MSNBC or CNN who had a panel that were literally almost at the brink of tears crying over the fact that Chadwick Boseman didn't win an Oscar for his role. And why was he supposed to be the winner? Why was it that he was supposed to be the best actor? What was the quality that made him best? Sadly, according to them, based on what they did and how they framed everything, simply because he was a black man. And again, if we're going to play that type of identity politics, get ready for people to shut the television off. Because instead of actually awarding movies and awarding people based on the merits of their work, based on the content of their character, as one famous person once said, instead people seem to only care about, especially in Hollywood, the color of one's skin or any other external factors that have no actual bearing, for the most part, on the individual inside. But anyway, what are your thoughts about this? Let me know in the comment section below. And again, if you want to check out the winners and I guess you could say losers of the Wednesday Raven Awards, go check those out. Again, some pretty great films got nominated and also won. You had films like The Gentleman, which I talked about earlier, getting Best Story in Film. Fat Man with Mel Gibson getting Best Low Budget Film of the Year. It was, again, a pretty fun night and show. Also, check out those links and be able to watch the show in full itself. Anyway, you guys are awesome. Thank you very much. Please smash the like button and please make sure you light up that fire button if you're watching this over on Odyssey. And we did find out last night that I can simulcast, not just to my normal YouTube, Periscope, and DLive, but also can push the stream over to Odyssey as well. So I'm going to try and play around again with that tonight because we do have our typical one-man low council stream, 7 p.m. Eastern time today. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. I hope you all have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my April Patreon and Subscribe Star members: Andrew Hoyle, Animation Commentator, Biffer the Hobbit, Brian P., Divex, Enrique Evangelista, Dion, Father Christopher Miller, Hail to you, Father, Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, Humor and Hobbies, Inflamed Wood, It's a Trap Productions, Jason Clark, Jacob Juice, Jeffrey Toone, Jonathan Carney, Lance, Laura Story, the Modern Major General, Mike Jackson, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mr. Peabody and his evil twin with the beautiful hair, On to June, Orange Hat Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Priscilla Hall, Riff Magos, Rosetta Allen, Steve Glasker, Teresa Martin, Theodore Bendon, Tina Bojan, and of course, the Empress of the Universe, Tina B. And my Subscribe Star remembers? Subscribe Star I did it again. Subscribe Star members: Fast Reaction, Nosferatu Gatsu, Stan 4, John B, Perpetual Punster, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., Dean Heiss / the new number 2, J-Rod the Beer Guru, Nebanon G. Adams, and ZK-Man. Thank you to all of my Patreon and Subscribe Star members. If you want your name shouted out at the end of every single video and live stream, check out the links in the description to find out how to sign up on Patreon and Subscribe Star. Also, you'll find out how to get access to things like giveaways of Blu-rays and 4K titles and digital codes, and also access to an exclusive podcast for my Keepers of the Bifrost, and also the Chosen of Valhalla level, where you can not only get all of those things, you also get a t-shirt and get to be featured on a live stream once a month hosted on the OMB Reviews channel. Anyway, if you want to have access to any of those things, check out the links in the description for Patreon and Subscribe Star for more information. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and as always, God bless.